Good Wednesday afternoon. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Chris Arabsky. New this afternoon, Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison in Washington, D.C. to testify about fraud in Minnesota before the House Oversight Committee there. The hearing getting combative at times, with Republicans accusing Walz and Ellison of knowing about this fraud for years, but doing nothing to stop it. Governor Walz says Minnesota is being targeted by the Trump administration.
The people of Minnesota have been singled out and targeted for political retribution at an unparalleled scale, including blocking Medicaid reimbursements to our state just last week. Under the guise of combating fraud, the federal government has flooded Minnesota with masked, untrained, and unaccountable agents who are wreaking havoc in our communities. On the streets of Minnesota, federal agents have entered U.S. citizens' homes who have committed no crimes. They have violated the constitutional rights of our citizens. They have ignored court orders. They have shot first and asked questions later.
Also today, a new sentence handed down in the Feeding Our Future case. Abdul Karim Farah pleaded guilty last year to one count of bribing a juror. He admitted to driving to a juror's home, helping deliver $120,000 in cash in exchange for not guilty verdicts. Farah and prosecutors have already agreed to a recommended sentence of between 4 and 5 years in prison. Brand new video in today showing the devastation in Iran's capital of Tehran after a fresh wave of Israeli attacks there. Israel saying it hit targets across Iran for a fifth straight day. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says the operation in the Middle East is going as planned. He also spoke about the 6 soldiers who have lost their lives in the fighting.
Much was made of the volume of missiles Iran was able to shoot in the first few days. And sadly, as we projected, a few got through and killed 6 of our best, who will hopefully arrive home soon. We will avenge them, no doubt. 4 days in, we have only just begun to fight. America fights to win, and in Operation Epic Fury, we are. May God's providence cover and protect our troops always.
Right now in White Bear Lake, flags are flying at half-staff to honor Sergeant First Class Nicole Amor. She's the Army reservist from that city who was killed by an Iranian airstrike in Kuwait. Amor was one of 4 soldiers identified. She was part of an Army Reserve unit based in Des Moines. She served her country more than 2 decades. And as Raya Catania reports, she was just days from coming home to her 2 children.
One of the 6 Army Reserve soldiers killed overseas in what the White House is calling Operation Epic Fury is Nicole Amor, a Sergeant First Class from White Bear Lake. The Pentagon says she and 5 others were killed in a drone strike on March 1st in Kuwait.
It's absolutely tragic, and the White Bear Lake community will feel it. The state of Minnesota will feel it.
Joe Bennick is with the Minnesotans Military Appreciation Fund, a nonprofit organization that's been around since 2005, on what Bennick says is a simple mission.
It was just a simple way to say thank you with cash grants. Here we are 20 years later. We've awarded $13.6 million to over 20,000 Minnesotans.
The cash, ranging from $500 to $10,000, is given to Minnesotans who've served, those who've received a Purple Heart, and to the families of Minnesotans killed in combat. The White House says Sergeant Amor was 39 years old and assigned to an Army Reserve unit out of Iowa. Her husband tells AP News the 2 spoke just a couple of hours before she was killed, adding that she was recently moved off base to a shipping container-style building with no defenses.
In a tragedy, there will be lots of people who step up to show their support for her family.
The Pentagon says Sergeant Amor enlisted in the National Guard in 2005 and has won several awards, including the Army Commendation and National Defense Service medals.
Keep her family and friends in your thoughts and prayers. In a very tumultuous time, especially in the state of Minnesota, just something as simple as talking to your neighbors, just trying to do what you can to show your support for military, to show support for the state of Minnesota. I think that's the very least we can do.
Right now, U.S. Armed Forces are scrambling to get Americans out of the Middle East who just happened to be there when the fighting started over the weekend.
First, it's a great opportunity to encourage everybody in the region to go to the State Department and register. Secretary Rubio's been trying to get that word out, and I'd ask you to help us with that, to have folks register. We've also opened up space available seats as C-17s and other airplanes come in to try to help folks get out. But that's really a State Department matter, but to answer your question, that's what we've been doing.
Today's an important day here in Minneapolis, too. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara is going to share the impact of Operation Metro Surge on his department with the Minneapolis City Council. MPD, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, and other agencies also sharing new data. During Operation Metro Surge, the Department of Homeland Security and ICE came into Minnesota to remove undocumented immigrants and investigate fraud. Minneapolis Police Department leaders say they received 50,000 calls for service. Because of that high call volume, they canceled 1,000 days off and they extended 500 daily shifts so they could have more officers on the street. That led, they say, to $5.2 million in overtime pay, about double what they budgeted for the year. We also heard from the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, where deputies worked around 9,000 overtime hours during Operation Metro Surge, which is costing that department about $1 million. St. Paul Police say their officers worked about 4,700 hours of overtime at a cost of $372,000. And Bloomington Police report 415 overtime hours at a cost of about $32,000. Waymo may be in for a bumpy ride on the road to approval in Minnesota. DFL lawmakers and union leaders are calling for more safeguards before the company can start using its autonomous vehicles on Minnesota streets. Lawmakers are introducing a bill this week that would prohibit autonomous vehicles from operating commercially until an advisory board completes a study.
Waymo's executives have told Congress that they have workers, some in other countries, who make driving decisions when the algorithm fails. So there are people who may or may not be in the U.S., who may or may not have U.S.-based driver's licenses, operating cars that are supposed to be self-driving. We cannot let this unregulated industry turn into an unregulated monopoly that puts tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of Minnesotans out of work.
The bill would require an independent economic analysis to understand the ripple effects on families and local businesses. At last report, Waymo initiated testing for its autonomous vehicles in Minneapolis. We are only in the third week of the legislative session at the state capitol, but immigration enforcement has already been one of the dominant topics, with more bills from Democrats back on the table again today. Here's Danny Spiewak with a look at where things stand.
As expected, the response to Operation Metro Surge has shaped much of the early part of Minnesota's 2026 legislative session.
I continue to hope that on a lot of these ICE bills, we do get folks to move.
DFL Representative Athena Hollins presented a bill in committee Tuesday that would prevent local governments from entering into 287G agreements with ICE, which allow local law enforcement to assist in immigration enforcement. According to Homeland Security, 9 Minnesota cities and counties currently have those arrangements with ICE, but they would all be terminated if this bill passed.
To make sure that local law enforcement get to stay local law enforcement for us and don't do, the dirty work of the federal government, DHS and ICE.
With the House tied, though, the bill failed to advance out of the Public Safety Committee after Republicans voted in opposition, saying there should be more local cooperation with ICE, not less.
They have a job to do. We're going to do it safely, and we're going to do it by the support of our local law enforcement.
In that same committee, GOP members also blocked a DFL proposal to require the BCA to investigate use of force cases involving federal agents. To get around these committee roadblocks, the DFL has pushed early in this session to get ICE legislation directly on the House floor for a vote, like a bill this week to ban federal agents from wearing masks.
Anonymity erodes trust.
But that effort failed too.
There's no point in this bill other than theater.
Meanwhile, the top House GOP priority on immigration enforcement is a bill to ban cities and counties from having sanctuary policies.
The House Republican sponsor of that bill, Max Reimer, says that he plans to bring the legislation up in committee again this session. But in the tied House, due to Democratic opposition, that legislation also has little chance of passing. At the Capitol, I'm Danny Spiewak, KARE 11 News.
Developing now, a Hugo woman is now charged with repeatedly threatening Minnesota House Speaker Lisa Demuth. According to the charges, 42-year-old Rachel Welsh left harassing phone messages with the Speaker's office almost every day since the new year. The charging documents say Welsh admitted she would be at Demuth's campaign events and make threats against her life. Demuth told law enforcement the threat significantly affected her. The judge also granted an extreme risk protection order barring Welsh from buying or owning guns for now. Stick with us. We got more news and weather coming up after the break.